For over half a century, humans have endeavored to make business a force for good. But is the movement working? Or is it time to explore a new path forward? Welcome to Less Talk, More Action. We are your hosts, Joel Caesar and Owen Barrett, experts in clean energy, net zero real estate, decarbonization, and entrepreneurship. In each episode, we ask provocative questions and share stories from the front lines of sustainability with leaders in science, tech, and business taking real action to design a cleaner, better future. Thanks for joining the conversation. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to Less Talk, More Action podcast. My name is Joel Caesar, the world's undisputed voice of building decarbonization. Joining me as always is Owen Barrett, the self-proclaimed Adam Newman of green building. Today's guest, a man that needs no introduction in the field of clean energy, Jigar Shah, one of the most influential voices in clean energy and sustainable infrastructure. Incredible bio that you'll hear when you listen to the show. So we're no bit this week from the two of us because we wanted to give Jigar as much time as possible, and you and I are kind of nerded out. Could have asked some questions all day, but obviously didn't disappoint. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, Jigar's on my. He's one of the four on my Clean Tech Mount Rushmore. So it's always. I mean, it's just so fun to interview him.
Is he next to me? Where am I? Am I in the?
Yeah, you're right in between him and Elon. No, I mean, the guy is he's so well-spoken and he's so optimistic. He's like, if everyone in our industry could just be more like Jigar, I think we would have so much more success.
Yeah. And like he said in the show, when we were kind of asking him about what is his superpowers and his career of bouncing between investor, entrepreneur, operator, nonprofit CEO, then government loan programs office. It's a great lesson in just being a dynamic individual and trying to attack your industry from all those fronts and how each stop makes you better for it, right? So it's not just someone who's out there whining and saying, I wish someone else would make this world better. The guy just inserts himself wherever he needs to.
He just takes action all over the world. Like, I feel like after talking to him, I'm like, man, I'm just doing solar in multifamily in America. This guy's all over the place, knows everything about everything.
That's true. Yeah, those points at the end about Pakistan and about Ethiopia. It's we're all obviously a little too American-centric here.
Yeah.
There's bigger problems to solve out there, and he's out there solving them. Well, everyone's going to enjoy it, so no bit from us this week. We're going to jump right into a great conversation with Jigar Shah. Joining us today is Jigar Shah, one of the most influential voices in clean energy and sustainable infrastructure. Jigar is currently the co-host of the Open Circuit podcast from Latitude Media and a part-time senior fellow at the World Resources Institute. Most recently, he led the reinvigoration of the U.S. Department of Energy's Loan Programs Office, helping inspire hundreds of entrepreneurs to invest in American manufacturing, innovative project finance, and tribal energy. With more than 25 years in clean energy, Jigar has shaped some of the industry's most transformative ventures. He co-founded and served as president of Generate Capital, founded SunEdison, the company that pioneered the modern solar-as-a-service model, and was the founding CEO of the Carbon War Room, launched by Sir Richard Branson. He's also the author of Creating Climate Wealth, and in 2024, he was named to Time Magazine's list of the 100 most influential people in the world. So, Jigar, welcome to Let's Talk More Action.
Awesome. Great to be here.
Great to have you. Well, you know us. We like to get right to work here. So let's dive right in. How are you, Jigar, taking action to make the world a better place?
Well, it's been a lifetime of action around here, right? From starting companies like SunEdison and Generate Capital to serving in the government, right? And then most recently, a lot of what I'm doing is really helping people understand, how we really reach affordability for consumers, right? I think for a long time, everyone's been obsessed about deploying technology, but not really how it affects people's electricity bills. But I think we're in that stage right now where, it's on us to make sure that this stuff that we're deploying is really affordable. And so I've been super excited about the work I've been doing on the distributed capacity procurement in Minnesota, as well as virtual power plants. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Jigar, one of the things we talk about here is just how sustainability messaging doesn't always resonate with people.
Yeah.
How's it been as you're talking about affordability, maybe as an angle to clean technology instead of like decarbonization?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that like the fact that sustainability doesn't resonate with people has been on purpose, right? Like, when you think about what a lot of folks have tried to do in this sector, they've tried to say that sustainability doesn't pay for itself, but it's just another cup of coffee per month to like make yourself green, which you and I know is BS, right? When I started SunEdison in 2003, from that first day, we were saving people money on their electricity bills. From that very first day,
What was the
right?
cost, just out of curiosity, what was cost per watt in the early days at SunEdison? Do you remember?
We got it down. Like even in that first year, we were down at like 550 a watt,
Okay.
which today is like $2 a watt
Yeah.
for like, a Walmart type system.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I mean it was like 550 a watt, but we made sure it saved people money, and everything I've ever done has been about saving people money, right? Every single time. And so this is where I think that we have allowed other organizations to represent the, sort of cost effectiveness and the messaging on our technologies and the rollout of our stuff, right? But the bottom line is that the reason people need to be doing the stuff that we're doing is because either it saves you money, or for electric vehicles, where else can you affordably get a car that goes 0 to 60 in 1.8 seconds? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, that stuff's usually $1 million.
Yeah.
You can get it a lot cheaper than an EV.
Yeah.
Well, Jigar, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I was pinging some friends of the industry before this interview to say, hey, we're getting Jigar Shah. Like, what should I ask him? What does the community want to know? So I got some questions here on my
All right.
in the queue, but I'm going to be selfish and start first with the question I want. Hi, we got you here. That's the advantage of being
That's
the host.
right. That's right.
It's interesting reading your bio and hearing your stories, and you, like you said, started companies, founded kind of industries, like you said, solar as a service, like very first mover on new ideas, then going into venture capital, and then government and different roles within government. It sounds like. That's the way I tee up a question. I'm a pretty ambitious person. I've been in government. I've tried to start companies. I'm now at a Series A startup that's doing exciting stuff with AI in software. I went for big tech. I worked at Google, and it's like, I'm just like always trying to figure out, man, where's going to be the place where I'm like, this is it. Like this is the impact. This is the place, the scale, the level of like my like as a professional, my employment level at that place. So it's a long way of asking you a question of like, as you look back, or as you're even considering where you are now, if you're giving advice maybe to someone like me, like where's the best place to have impact? Or is it to do what you've done, which is to bounce around?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and one that like is really complex to answer, right? I think you and I both know that after the dot-com bubble of the 1999, 1998 timeframe, it became sexy to become an entrepreneur, right? Like before then, if you said you were going to be an entrepreneur, your parents were like, what the hell? Get out of our basement, right? But like now, people are like, oh, you're going to be an entrepreneur? That's really cool, right? Yeah. That's sexy.
That's
In fact, somebody might even want to date you if you're an entrepreneur, right? So I get it, right? But the problem I find with the vast majority of people I meet who want to be an entrepreneur, who want to start a company, is that their ideas suck. Right? But people like so desperately want to be an entrepreneur. They're like, I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to because it's a whatever. Like this guy raised a seed stage round, so somebody must have thought it was a good idea, so I'm going to join him. Like if you think about what my life's trajectory has been, right? I left SunEdison, got a bunch of job offers after I left SunEdison, after I sold it. They were all to basically do the same thing I did at SunEdison, so I was like, no. Richard Branson, ended up calling me through a headhunter and, asked me whether I wanted to do a global nonprofit. It was pretty successful, but I was a horrible CEO, right? Because the job of a nonprofit head is to raise money, and I wasn't good at doing that. But we made a difference. We merged Carborum into the Rocky Mountain Institute, and it's doing really well. I took 2 years off after that. Why? Because like none of the stuff that people were pitching me were inspiring, right? Like you don't just take something if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, look, I get it. People need to pay the bills, all that stuff. I didn't need to after I'd sold SunEdison. But like, you don't just take the first thing that comes across your desk as an entrepreneur, right? Like if you're graduating from college, yeah, definitely take the first thing that comes across your desk and just get a goddamn job. It's amazing me how many 22-year-olds are like, I'm waiting for the perfect job. I was like, screw you, just get a freaking job. But like for those of you who are mid-career, like stay at your current job, find the right opportunity. And the right opportunity means that you actually think that you can make a dent in the universe.
Love
Right?
that quote. It's one of my favorites.
Totally. But like I've left the loan programs office. You know, I've been pitched a bunch of stuff. None of it seems too amazing to me. And so I've decided to take my own path, right? I'm podcasting. I'm helping, start up some nonprofits, which I think are awesome, right? I joined Multiplier with Jonathan Silver to like help. So many of these CEOs that I've talked to have like really gotten crappy exits. And so we're like helping people get better exits. At some point, someone's going to pitch me something that's so amazing that I'm going to leave everything else behind and work on it full time. And I have, right? I mean, like SunEdison was 5 years, Carbon Rome was 4 years, Generate Capital was 6 years, right? Like the loan programs office was 4 years. So, I'm not a 1 year guy.
Before Owen jumps in, I have to warn you. He became an entrepreneur to impress girls. I'm pretty sure.
I
Why.
did.
Oh, I mean, people
Well,
buy
it was
dogs to impress girls.
Yeah, I'm not a dog guy, so I decided to become an entrepreneur. No, I mean, it's where, I don't know. It's, I came from this background where, and I'm still like this today. If somebody tells me to do something that I think is dumb, I won't do it. And that's not a good way to be successful in corporate America. So I didn't have another option but to start my own company. It's because I was never going to succeed within corporate America, I don't think.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a personal problem that you have. But
Yeah,
like,
for
I
sure.
mean, look, I mean, like.
Or how is it? I mean, Jigar, maybe how was it when you went to the loan programs office now at the
Well,
government?
exactly. That's precisely where I was headed with this. I mean, look, I'm good at a lot of things, right? Being a government employee is not one of them. And so I go in there and, like my job is to put $40 billion to work that has been sitting around there since 2012. And, I get to work. I cold called 100 people that I knew and said, hey, why aren't you using the loan programs office? And they were like, we wouldn't be caught dead using a government program. We're all libertarians, right? And then like, we
And
like
when was that? When did you take over the loan programs office?
2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my understanding of LPO, and sorry to interrupt, but you weren't actually giving out money. It was more of loan guarantees, right?
Oh no, it's a loan for sure. Yeah, it's
It
not
is
a
just-
grant. Yeah, it was definitely it's a loan guarantee to the U.S. Treasury Department, who then issues a loan. So it's really a loan, right?
And people were
so,
still standoffish about that. They didn't want.
Of course they were. They were like, look, Jigger, if I take this loan, what's the chances I'm going to get dragged in front of a committee in front of Congress? Yeah. Like, what's the chances that like my name's going to be sullied like all those people in the Solyndra stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like so. Look, I get it, man. Like people weren't really into it, so we did this. But then, like I attracted these extraordinary people, like Kyle Winslow, who, like is just a savant at like managing the legislature, right? And that's how we got from 40 billion to 400 billion dollars worth of loan authority, right? Because he knew everything about everything, right? I had like this extraordinary chief of staff, like Sydney Bopp, who came in, who like turned down a big job at the law firm to come back in, and she brought in Jamie Nolan, who's like literally the best, media comms person I've ever met, right? Like, and all of them had things to tell me to do that I was like, I don't want to do this, right? But I did it because they're damn smart people, and like part of what's different today than when I was 28 and I started SunEdison is I recognize the very small sliver of things that I'm amazing at, better than everyone else in the world. And the rest of the stuff I recognize I'm not good at.
What was
and when
that
someone
sliver?
tells me to do it, I mean, I just like shut up and do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious. What was the sliver of things that are your superpowers?
Well, there's a couple superpowers I have. One is that like I can gain the trust of another CEO like in 8 minutes, right? Mostly because like I'm a real person, like I don't bullshit people, but also because I have a lot of empathy for, the stuff they're going through. And I have never let people down. Like the problem in the finance community, as you know, is like they like get you to take their money and then they're constantly trying to screw you over so they can maximize their fund, right? I've never done that, right? Like I will take a lower return, but I want to do right by the folks that I work with, right? And so like as a result, I have a unique ability to gain the trust of entrepreneurs, which as you know, is not easy to do. They don't trust anybody. They know that everyone's trying to reach in their pocket and get some of their equity
Yeah.
or get some of their money, right? And so, I've been very good at that. But the other thing I've been very good at is being very honest about how to communicate, like what works and what doesn't work to the general public, right? Like, and so when you look at like my LinkedIn following or like the stuff that I've done there, it's not because like I've got fancy videos. Like they're always like pitching me Canva. They're like, hey, if you use Canva, we'll give you 77% more looks at your posts. I was like, I'm not learning how to use Canva. I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about, right? But I'm just real on there and I'm like, look, this is how this person actually made money. The big thing that I find in our industry is that like everything's opaque. Like everything's basically like, hey, this guy raised $23 million. And that's the entire news story. Right.
Yeah.
But I was like, why did people invest $23 million into them? What did they see about their business plan? What do they have to deliver to make that $23 million investor happy? Right. Like I go deep into that stuff and then I reveal all those secrets to people on LinkedIn, on the podcasts I've done, et cetera. And I think our industry is better for it because now people have a better idea of how to make money in this industry.
You see us both shaking our head here. It's Owen talks about this a lot on this show, like how our industry is timid about speaking out and sharing, and how we all could do better, especially those of us who have some battle scars and have done some things to share more of these stories. And I would say it's like this podcast, Jigar, you're joining, you might be guest number 20 or something like that. And we've started, you were on our previous podcast called The Climate Rebels, and now this is slightly different. And we started with just kind of a wide net. We're trying to bring in anyone we think is cool and interesting and just get this off the ground. But I can foresee, I've thought about this, I haven't even said this to Owen, like a world where it becomes sort of how I built this for clean tech. For the exact point you're describing, like I want to know more and I want people to share more who've like started the companies, raised the money, gotten screwed by the investor, or maybe a competitor came out of nowhere. They weren't like, what are the real shit that we can like be sharing to the up and coming nascent entrepreneurs that can teach them things, and use this podcast as a way to bring value. So obviously we align with everything you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think our industry does a really bad job of explaining the secret sauce.
Yeah.
I think everyone believes their secret sauce is so amazing and so secret that they keep it like locked up. And then when you find out what it is, right, you're like, wow, like everyone knows that. Like that's not really so secret.
I just made a post about this on LinkedIn about how, in my perspective, the idea is not what separates although you just said everyone's ideas suck, but I don't think it's the idea that...
You say everyone.
Just yours, Owen, just yours.
Just mine. I got a great idea. Let me tell you. No, but it's not the idea that separates the entrepreneur. It's execution.
Yeah. Totally.
100%. And that part, like so many people have an idea and they won't even tell you.
They're so protective of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're so scared that someone's going to come around and steal it, and they don't even understand that like 10 other people probably have that same idea and someone else is going to execute on it
or are trying to work on it in the background.
Exactly.
Totally.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Execution is the key to all of it, and it's and in order to execute, the key to executing is actually be able to recruit amazing people in your team, which is another superpower that I've had over the years. Is I've been able to attract the most extraordinary people to SunEdison who continue to have this extraordinary alumni network in the marketplace, but generate capital as well, and of course the loan programs office. I mean, we hit it out of the park with the people we were able to attract there.
Well, Jigar, actually, on this note, maybe this will be fun. Do you know much about what Owen's working on now? Maybe Owen can inspire you to join him. Let's let him do a little
Make the pitch, Owen. Make the pitch.
Make the pitch. All right. Well, we do solar for multifamily, but we don't put it on common area meters. We only do individual interconnections into tenant meters because we want to actually decarbonize multifamily. And what we recognize is if you want to do that style of installation, you need a software platform to to bill tenants and to monitor all these small individual systems. So we combined sort of the solar billing software with an EPC to be a turnkey solar solution for the multifamily industry. And we've just seen really good traction because I think the multifamily industry is sick of being pitched solar for common area because it's the numbers are not very exciting and it doesn't really do anything from a decarb space. But once you tell them that you can unlock all of the roof space and drive way more NOI via on-site solar, it tends to get asset managers and executives a little bit more excited.
That's amazing. You know who else is doing that is Holahu
Yeah,
in
but
Hawaii.
they do storage too, right? It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Our good friend Richard Matsui just joined as an advisor to those guys. But I totally agree with you. I think, but this goes to doing the hard thing, right? When you think about where the solar industry has come from, right? It was super hard, right? Off-grid projects, telecom towers, whatever. Then we got net metering, right? Not because we needed the incentive, but actually because the utilities had no freaking idea how to dual meter our stuff and bill it. And it was all just garbage. They're like, just let the meter run backwards. It's easier for us. And then, now we're in a situation where, we need to do the hard thing. We need to figure out how to actually get money to tenants. We need to figure out how to do all that stuff to be, because we're mature now.
Yeah.
We're a mature industry now, right? We're 85% of everything that gets added to the grid is between us and battery storage.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think having companies like you actually do the hard stuff to actually make sure that it's relevant to these multifamily tenants, that's amazing stuff.
Thanks,
There you
Jigar.
go. Not a stupid
Joe, I told
idea.
you my idea doesn't suck.
Yeah, look at this, getting to pitch the big shot here, live on the show. Well, Jigar, actually, so this is a good segue. I mean, I know your ears to the ground. You mentioned earlier today what you're working on now, early in the call, podcasting and doing some advising. I know you got your eye. You sent me a couple companies that you're interested in from the decarb space. But anything you want to share here today? Like, what's getting you excited? What companies do you think are really threading the needle right now?
Well, look, I mean, I think on a macro basis, it's very obvious that we're heading into an electricity supercycle, right? With load growth and all this other stuff, right? We need to meet the moment. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to unlock all these economic development opportunities, right? And I think part of the challenge with this administration's sort of tact right now is they're still blaming someone else for rate increases, right? But I think the question really in front of us is, how the hell are we going to meet this moment?
Yeah.
Right. And, I think that one of the things that we've seen for a long time is that demand flexibility and grid flexibility has really been the key, right? Because you only got so many pipes, right? So you build a bunch of big utility scale solar farms, you put it through the transmission, but a lot of times that's clogged and it takes a long time to upgrade that. And then you try to put it through the distribution and that's clogged. Right. So I think you see a lot of people doing rooftop now. And I think you see a lot of people putting battery storage on distribution circuits themselves. Right. So you think about the distributed capacity procurement that Spark Fund's doing with Xcel Minnesota. Or you look at the big announcements that Voltus has done this last week with the big hyperscalers. You look at the fact that Baltimore Gas and Electric just announced that they staved off rolling blackouts last week after their coal plant went down, just through demand flexibility programs, right? And so I think you've got hundreds of companies in that sector that have been going to Distributech every year, that have gone to Dervos and, that's coming up here in October at Governor's Island. And, a lot of those guys, they've had solutions, but they haven't had utility enthusiasm to sign contracts with them. And now, all of a sudden, the utilities are super enthusiastic, and the regulators are like, well, I don't know. No one pitched me this idea. So now we got to figure out how to get the regulators on board. But, when you talk to governors, our stuff is so damn boring that governors don't care, right? But when you look at the New Jersey governor's race and the Virginia governor's race, the 20% rate increases that are coming from the PJM capacity auction, that made a governor, a candidate for the governorship, talk about it. I was like, how esoteric is that?
Yeah.
But it's
crazy.
important enough that they talked about it. And the only way to solve that problem? VPPs. Like, what else is New Jersey going to do to reduce rates by 20%? The number one thing they could do is to figure out a way to help every single person in New Jersey who already has a solar system to add a battery and then bid that battery capacity into the PJM auction. And you probably reduce the cost of power by 20%.
Oh, and do
So,
you know what
Jig-
Dervos is when he says Dervos?
No, but I have a question because a lot of the things that Joel and I talk about on this podcast seem so straightforward. It seems so obvious, and what you just described seems so obvious.
Yeah.
What's the pushback from utilities, or why aren't we seeing it happen faster?
There's no pushback, right? Well, there used to be pushback, right? The pushback before was, this is not the way that my grandfather taught me how to do it. And so
Yeah.
I don't want to do it this way, right? Fine. But there's no pushback now. The utilities are basically like, I'm crying uncle. I have no frickin' idea how to meet this moment. And like, any good ideas are welcome. So I think the
Yeah.
utilities are now all in on this solution, right? But if you think about a governor, right? What does it take to become the governor of a state, right? It's not your expertise on how electricity markets work, right? And so what has happened in the past is the vast majority of governors have said, I don't want to know how any of the physical world works. I don't want to know how airports work. I don't want to know how water and sewer works. I don't want to know how traffic works. I don't want to know how electricity works, right? So they got like advisors, the CEO of the utility, somebody else that comes in, tells them what's up. When you go tell them something, they said, well, my guy over here told me something different, right? And so, like, they're not experts. They're not thinking about this stuff. And so, so we have to start going in and really talking about that. And that's real political power, right? When you're 85% of everything that gets added to the grid every year,
Yeah.
kind of have a responsibility to go educate mayors and county commissioners and governors. And we haven't spent the money to do that.
Yeah.
We haven't spent the time to do that. So we have to do that now, right? And I think the last piece of this is the regulators, right? So the regulators, like, look, a lot of the regulators, they're really good people. Like, they're not bad people. But ultimately, their challenge is they've got 5 staff, right? And they don't have the time to become an expert in everything. And a lot of the regulators actually, they like regulate cable. They regulate like, natural gas pipelines. They regulate all sorts of stuff under the Public Service Commission, right? So, so one of our challenges in this moment is that everyone is nervous. And they're saying, well, show me who the 8 other people are that I respect that have already done this.
Yeah.
And then I'll just copy it, right?
Yeah.
So when we were at the Department of Energy, a lot of what we did was that, right? So we sent lots of people into the public service commissions to give them technical assistance for free, right? Because they were understaffed. And so this woman, Tiffany, she actually was a DOE fellow at the Texas Public Service Commission. She's the one who put in the ADER pilot so that VPPs could thrive in Texas, right? And now she's off doing her own thing, but she was critical, right? So we did a lot of that. Then we took all the case studies and put them into the VPP virtual power plant liftoff report, right? And so we put 75 case studies in there. So now people can just flip through it and be like, well, who's already done this? You're like, oh, well, here's what National Grid's doing. Here's what Utah's doing. Here's what Montana's doing. Here's what Illinois is doing. Here's what Georgia's doing. Right, here's what Texas is doing. Now people are like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm behind Louisiana now. All right, guys, I should like get to work.
So you guys are both going to help me out when I run for governor of Pennsylvania in 2030?
I'm
You
your-
guys
I
gonna be on
mean,
my-
I'm your
it
lobbyist.
depends. It depends.
I'm going to run on this issue.
Are you going to run as a Phillies fan? Like, or a Pirates fan?
Well, it's a good question. I won't get into it. I got both fandoms in my family, so I'm gonna piss someone off no matter how I answer that. We're gonna root for the Super Bowl champs out of Philly. That's for sure.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Jigar, again, back to like we're people pay a lot of money to have access to you and your ideas. So here you are on our
God.
show. We got this for free. Let's say you're climate tech. Maybe that's not even the word you want to use anymore. Let's say you're clean tech, prop tech, VC, investor.
Yeah.
And you say, like, I'm raising a bunch of money. We got people behind us that want to continue to make this push and move this forward. But where do we go? What do we invest in now? Jigar, help us out. Advise us. Where would you be placing your bets?
Well, and look, I think that the first thing is to recognize what we talked about earlier, right? Which is that in general, when you're an investor, you want to invest in pain medication, not vitamin pills, right? Like vitamin pills do not like take off; they don't become viral, right? Pain medication absolutely goes viral, right? So like in general, the question is, are people in so much pain that they actually want to buy this product, that they need to have this product? And I think for a long time we screwed that up. There were a lot of people who were like, but this is such a cool technology. I'm like, it is cool, but talk to the
Does
local
anybody want it?
building owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, I don't want to bother with
Yeah.
something new, right? And that's, and so that's a lot of what we've been waiting for, right? Is figuring out what stuff really solves a real pain point. So now, like in Con Ed's territory, they're raising rates again, right, by double digits. And, their big problem is that they keep having to overinvest in their distribution grids. And if they could figure out a way to put batteries and VPPs strategically into places, then they could like eliminate those rate increases, right? But the challenge is that when you talk to real estate owners, they can't be bothered. If you go to a real estate owner and say, I'd like to pay you 4 times more for that parking spot than you normally rent it out for, and I'll sign a contract for the next 20 years, they're like, I don't know, I think maybe I can make 5 times more.
That example would
Right.
be what? Putting batteries in that parking spot?
Yeah, put a battery in that parking spot, right? But like a lot of real estate owners are like, I got screwed over in 1998 when someone tried to put a cell phone tower on my roof, and I did a deal for $200 when I could have gotten $800, and so now I don't want to do anything, right?
I just
And
had a
you're like,
conversation, Joel, with somebody in the real estate industry, head of sustainability, huge multifamily group. The CEO's buddy, 7 years ago, got burned on a PPA on a commercial site, and now he won't even consider solar.
yeah, it's crazy, and his rates have gone up 50%.
Yeah, it's wild.
And you're like, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
can't do anything. Yeah,
you're the
it's
dumb
crazy.
person bored every minute. But, it's one of those things, right? I mean, on the HVAC side, like Joel, you and I talked about, like there's a, company called Blue Box Air, right? They have an enzyme that, they worked with Ecolab to supply. And, it actually restores your coils back to original condition, right? And so you get another 10 years out of your HVAC unit. And they now have a system where they can actually clean it continuously every month, and it reduces your energy consumption by 35%. Because, the problem with HVAC is if it gets clogged up, then you get a lot more force that needs to be put through the coils, right? And so
What's the name of that company?
Blue Box Air, and they've done 100 million square feet, including MGM, including some of the big New York hospitals and others, right? So they've been fully proven for 10 years, but everyone's like, wait, what?
And
I
does
already
that
cleaned my coils.
I was going to say, could that also help with the recent news about the Legionnaires outbreak in New York City?
It can, right? But I mean, Legionnaires is generally in a chiller system. But no, you're exactly right. And so it's one of those things where there's all these people where for a long time people are like, I don't know. I kind of like my guy. He does my HVAC work. Do I really want to bring in a new guy with a new thing? Yeah. And, I don't really care what my energy costs are, because as long as my energy costs are the same as my other 10 neighbors, and all of our costs are going up together, then I'm benchmarked against my neighbors. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Seriously? You got local law 97, you got climate change right in the middle of this right now. But also a lot of real estate's becoming unaffordable,
Yeah.
right? And so why don't you care about affordability? But the question is that pain medication or vitamin pills? I think increasingly a lot of this stuff is becoming pain medication because we're in an electricity crisis. And so a lot of good ideas are becoming must-haves, right? But that's, I think, as a climate tech investor, you want to go into must-haves. You don't want to be in a, wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me, it's the way you're describing this moment. I worked for the city of Santa Monica in 2014, and we were about to.
That sounds like a terrible gig. Living in Santa Monica,
It wasn't
right
bad.
there.
Yeah, I lived in Venice Beach. I rode my bike up the boardwalk every day to work. It was a tough life. But 2014, you guys might not remember, but California was going through one of its most historic droughts ever.
Right.
And the city was about to build an extension to our city hall, and Santa Monica is known for leadership and sustainability. I was running the green building program, and we were saying let's build the greenest building ever. That was the initiative that when we entered these early design conversations around how do we build the greenest building ever. And we ended up doing a net zero water building. We used composting toilets. We treated the rainwater that landed on the roof to potable standards. We worked with the State Division of Drinking Water, LA County Public Health. All these agencies came to the table in a way that they probably wouldn't have if we weren't in this historic drought. So, we used to say it's probably maybe not like the best way to describe this, but never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
We advanced this building level water treatment technology 20 years because we were able to take a leap in a moment where we were like galvanizing around a crisis, a shortage, pain medication, like you're talking about, like it was real. And maybe this is a moment, like this electricity crisis we're entering is going to be a huge, we're going to look back and say that was a moment we leaped forward dramatically.
Well, I think it is going to be. And I really do think we have the technology and we have the companies to be able to make 20% of our entire peak demand flexible by 2030. And if that happens, we can keep rates flat. But if it doesn't happen, then we can't keep rates. We can't keep rates.
All joking aside, that sounds like the governor of Pennsylvania can run on a message like that. I'm going to keep your electricity rates flat.
Well, honestly, it's becoming a big campaign issue. You saw that, like, even Trump, like, tweeted out, like, please don't blame me for electricity rate increases. I mean, he must be, like, getting worried about it.
Yeah.
Jigar, I was just thinking through what you just said. So I talk to a lot of multifamily owners all the time, and everybody's worried about the tax credits going away. And I kind of have a similar perspective as you, where I actually think that all this demand growth in electricity is going to be a huge tailwind for renewables because electricity is going to get so expensive. But can you just unpack what you just said about if we can make 20% of our demand flexible?
Yeah.
Where we can keep rates flat. Does that also take into account putting new supply online or just keeping things as is but adding flexibility?
Yeah, no, it does. And so, like, remember, basically, our generation costs as a country have been relatively flat for 20 years, right? They've gone up a little bit when natural gas prices spiked in 2005, 2006, 2007, then they went down, obviously, after fracking and some of that stuff. And then we've added solar and wind. And obviously, the states that have the most solar and wind and like Oklahoma, Iowa, et cetera, have seen the lowest rate increases. And so Texas as well, et cetera. So like generation is generally fine, right? So we're going to keep adding more generation. Some of it's going to be expensive, like, like new nuclear or whatever else. Then some of it's going to be super cheap, like new solar and battery storage, whatever, right? But like that's going to be fine. Transmission also is, like costing more money, fine, whatever. But like, you can do dynamic line ratings and some of that stuff. Just to put that in perspective for you, that's $50 million total to unlock dynamic line ratings in the entire state of Texas. And it increases capacity by 30%.
Yeah,
Can you
dynamic
explain
line
what
rating.
that is?
What does that mean?
That just means that, like, right now you use a slide rule to calculate like how much capacity goes through a power line in Texas. And if you put this basically a sensor on the power line, then it can tell you what the temperature of that line looks like. And, it compares it with outside, et cetera. Because the big problem with transmission lines is if you put too much power through it, then it starts to sag and it starts to get too hot and overheat and then it fails, right? And so like you want to make sure that you're not letting it fail. But if you're actively monitoring it, you can put 30% more through it.
Wow.
Right? And so when you think about all the low cost stuff we could do, right? That's right there. Now you get to distribution. And distribution is a nightmare, right? Because like people are putting in EVs, people are putting in heat pumps, people are putting in all sorts of, higher loads, right? But your distribution grid in general is loaded at 10% of its capacity most of the hours. Right? And then when everyone comes home and plugs in their EV at the same time, it jumps up to like 80% of its capacity. Right? But if you could like let people plug in when they get home, but say, sorry, we're not going to charge until we have excess capacity on that distribution circuit, right? Your car is still going to be full by 6 a.m. the next morning, but it might start charging at 1 in the morning, right? Instead of right when you plug it in, right? That technology has been something that the automakers put into their cars starting in 2015. But the utilities haven't been using that technology and that feature until just recently, right?
You
and
also,
the same
on
thing's
that,
true with heat
on
pumps.
that train of thought, you also think that EV batteries are going to start being bidirectional? Because I think still like Ford Lightning says it is, but doesn't that seem like an obvious
I think Cybertruck says it is too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, it's a bit complicated. So, like, yeah, F-150 Lightning already does it. Rivian is letting you do it, right? But the problem with it is basically that most EVs are DC based, and so you need to make it V to G. You got to have your inverter built outside of the car, right? So you're basically pulling DC power out of the car. You convert it into AC, and then you power your house, right? Tesla is the only car that puts the inverter on the car. So in order for Tesla to be V to G, it's like $900 that you have to spend to basically connect it to your house. But in order for the F-150 Lightning to do it, it's like $7,000.
But even with that $900 adder, a house can't pull from the car today.
No, it
Yeah.
could. It could. I mean,
Okay.
Tesla doesn't offer it yet.
Yeah.
But like, if they did, it's like $900 for them to like connect it to your electrical panel and then basically start pulling from the car.
Why aren't they
Right?
doing that yet? Do you know?
I don't know. You know, Elon's busy. He's been like, distracting himself with other things. But they can do it, right? And so like, and I think it is coming, to be clear. Like, this is not like a structural issue. It's really just people just haven't been focused on it. But I
Yeah.
think that it's coming, let's say by 2030. And when it comes, it's going to be extraordinary, right? Because people are putting in power walls and that kind of stuff for $1,000 a kilowatt hour. Your battery in your car, right? You paid $200 a kilowatt hour for that battery,
Yeah.
right? And it's a 100 kilowatt hour battery,
Yeah, it's big.
right? And so like it's like having 7 Tesla power walls. And so like, I mean, it's an extraordinary thing, right? Like if you know a storm's coming in, you're like fully charge your battery.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome.
Well, Jigger, this has all been great stuff. We're getting towards the end of our time with you. Before we get to the last question, I'm going to ask one more question, and then Owen, you can jump in if you want. But yeah, like, what's your crystal ball, Jigger? 2035. What does the world look like? Like, I often ask this. Before I ask that question the way I just did, like, what does good look like for our industry? I don't know if you call our industry clean energy, sustainability. Like, what are we trying? What is 2035? Like, ideally, if everything happens the way we're saying, like, there's tailwinds, there's economics that are happening, there's reason to believe deployment will continue to happen at scale for reasons that aren't climate motivated. That's all good, but like, yeah, long way of asking. What's 2035 in your mind look like for us?
So that's 10 years from now, right? Let me just start with an anecdote. So when I started SunEdison in 2003, there was a trendy website called Long Bets, right? It was a foundation where you don't just like bet your friend something like at a bar and like say I'll buy you a beer if you're right. You had to pay $100 and register your bet on longbets.org, right? So in 2003, I registered a bet that said that by 2020, 75% of everything we added to the grid each year was going to be clean, right? And Trump was president at the time. Long Bets reached out to the EIA, the Energy Information Administration, of the Trump administration to verify that I was right on my bet, right? And they were like, yes, it was 76.5% this year.
Oh, we didn't know you were gambling, man. That's
Right?
cool.
So I'm just saying that the thing with these things is in 2003 when I started SunEdison, the world was a very different place. Like, I don't know that there were that many people who were saying that solar power was going to take over the world, right? But we registered on Long Bets that we thought it was going to take over the world, right? Now it's very obvious that it's taken over the world, and Pakistan has demonstrated that it's rebuilt half of its grid with solar power in like just a year, right? And so you're in this place right now where the technology is clearly superior and no one knows about it. Your parents don't know about it. Your cousins don't know about it. Everyone's like, oh, this solar thing's cool. But they don't actually know that it's game changing, right? And that the fossil fuel industry has failed miserably for 60 years to figure out how to bring electricity to poor people in Africa, right? Failed miserably. And we are going to get it all done by 2035. Every single person that right now people are saying are in energy poverty will have a solar home system for their family by 2035, right? We are going to end electricity poverty in the entire world with our technology by 2035. And when you think about like what Germany is doing with like balcony solar, right? We're going to have balcony solar across our country by 2035, not just Utah and some right-wing TikTokers are saying like this stuff is amazing, right? Is going to be nationwide, right? And so I just think that like we have this thing where we're like still like stretching. We're still like trying to convince people, particularly right now with the political dynamics that we have right now, that we're actually dominant. Like we're not alternative energy. We are dominant energy. I don't know what they're talking about when they say dominance.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Right? But like by 2035, we're going to be so dominant that I predict to you that gasoline sales will have peaked globally, right? That will actually be going down in terms of total gasoline that we're selling every year. Diesel sales will be going down every year, right? We will have actually hit peak oil demand globally. Why? Because China and India do not want to import oil. I'll give you one more example. Ethiopia right now bans the importation of internal combustion engines.
Well,
Why? Because because they have to import gasoline and diesel. You know what they don't have to import? Electricity. They have a massive hydro dam. And so they're like only electric vehicles are allowed into Ethiopia right now.
And not
Right?
because Ethiopia thinks they're going to solve climate change. It's for other reasons.
No.
Yeah.
yeah.
They just don't want the foreign policy hassle of having to import oil, right? And so I just think that these like little tidbits of information are everywhere. It is going to be universally understood by everybody that this is where you make a boatload of money, is this sector. And I think by 2035, like it'll be obvious to everybody.
This is such a good take. I mean, man, Jigar, one of the reasons that I love having you on our podcast, listening to you, reading your stuff, is just because you're always optimistic, which is awesome. But you also can just like distill things so simply in such an easily digestible manner. But I recently relocated to Utah, and I'll occasionally tell people that I'm in solar. And sometimes I get this like, oh man, sorry to hear that with the tax credits going away. Like, man, you have no idea. Like there's this people, like to your point, people just haven't really grasped it yet. They think it's this like disappearing technology because
Cottage
of the tax.
industry or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, oh, eventually, like this will get more mainstream. And even
My uncle did that to me in 1996 when I said I wanted to work in solar. He's like, "Oh, Jigger, you have so much potential. Why would you waste it on solar?"
oh, yeah,
That's a nice I told you so.
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
What-
We don't look eye to eye when we see each other at reunions anymore.
Well, Jigger, to Owen's point, let's wrap up. We always end the show with the same question. So on that theme of hope and optimism, we try to orient the end of the show towards those ideas, right? Like there's a lot of negativity and pessimism in this field, and news cycles that can point to the downsides. But we know you see the light. So yeah, tell us what gives you hope for the future.
Honestly, I just think that when you think about the way in which I grew up, and everybody is just like, it was amazing in the 1970s. My dad had like 3 cracks in his rearview mirror from my forehead going into the rearview mirror because I didn't wear a seatbelt, right? And like he'd slam on the brakes and I'd go straight into a thing, right? Like our world is so much better today than it was when I grew up. I just think that people don't understand like what it means to live in like India, like where I grew up in India. Like the amount of pollution, the fact that you can't just swim in the river without getting, some sort of disease, right? The fact that like all of like, there's 1 million women a year who still die of smoke inhalation in Africa because that's how they cook, right? That is all going away right now before our eyes, right? And I know that people are like, well, I only do residential solar in Utah, or I only do multifamily solar in Utah or in Hawaii or whatever, right? But it's all of us collectively
Yeah.
that made that happen, right? We're the ones who drove the scale of solar where it started at 13 cents a watt sale price from China in January. It's going to end at 8 cents a watt this December. Right. Right. And so like when you just think about what that means for the revolution in energy, it is like, I don't think most people in our industry can wrap their brain around how their efforts, their individual efforts every single day is collectively figured out how to change the world as we know it. And I think that it's just, I'm humbled by just how great water quality, air quality, all of that stuff is going to be over the next 10 years.
Love it.
Great stuff. Well, Jigar, it's been a pleasure. I'd say one of your other superpowers is great podcast hosts to join when you see them. You've joined us twice.
I was there early before they had no
Yeah.
listeners.
You were a first mover. You saw the talent.
I love it.
Well, Jigar, what else can you plug? So we're going to wrap up here. Tell people where to find you. Your podcasting, website.
No, I'm good. I mean, open circuit every week, obviously. My LinkedIn has got all of my stuff on it, and I'm on there all the time. So if you want to get in touch with me, just LinkedIn message me. But just huge fan of what you guys are doing and the time you're spending to educate folks. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jigar.
Yeah, thanks, Jigar. Well, thank you, Owen, and thank the audience for joining us today. You can also find Owen and I on LinkedIn, usually actively antagonizing the more talk, more complaining sustainability crowd. You can find this podcast and more great content at letstalkmoreaction.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And until next time, we encourage you to ask yourself, what are you doing to take action to make the world a better place?